Hello there, yep, you've guessed it, it's Nick Dutch again. Just want to talk today about one of the many definitions, historical and traditional definitions of the word magic, which of course came out of Alister Crowley. He says in Magic in Theory and Practice, magic is the art and science of change in accordance with the will. I violently hate that particular definition. The first reason is because it is quoted with great frequency by people who say they are practicing magic. However, it is done with such pomposity and with such lack of reverence for the words and their meaning that it becomes completely meaningless. Now, if someone is to say that they are practicing an art and science of something, they must be able to explain the reason for that definition. They must be able to demonstrate in what ways they are being artistic and in what ways they are being scientific. So what I'm going to do now is just try and break it down. What do we mean by the word art, for instance? There are different types of art. You got painting, you got sculpture, there's so many types, including of course martial arts. If you sit down and you think, you can probably find loads more arts. The arts, maybe in the art of playing tennis or of the strategy of a football match. All these things are arts. Why are they art? You've got to look at the things which are similar between all the various different forms of art. In each case, well, they don't always provide something which is beautiful. They don't always provide something which is optically pleasing. But in each case, it's always the story of one person having a skill or trying to learn a skill and going throughout the entire life of perpetually improving their skill in something. So we can therefore say that art is not painting, art is not sculpture. Art is the action of deploying and expressing skill in anything. So for you, that could be the skill of someone who does meditation, the skill of someone who does prayer. If you're going to do something which involves skill, you're going to need to evaluate your progress, evaluate in what ways you were doing things right or wrong or could do better, or what little aspects you could change, and it will be a question of analysing in great detail everything that you've done, what you've done right, what you've done wrong, and everything in between, to see whether you can find ways for improvement. But the other thing about art is it's a question of lifelong learning. It would never ever stop. So, art involves skill, art involves learning, art involves improvement of skill, art involves lifelong learning and lifelong improvement of skill. You've got to then apply that to everything you do, and you decide to call magic if you want to consider yourself to be a magician. If you can't do that, then basically, go to hell. Your ability to use language is pathetic unless you can actually express, understand how you're using art and artistic ideas when you're doing your magical work. Now let's have a look at science, which is a completely different kettle of fish. Science is not physics, chemistry, or biology. Alright, those are specific schools of study. Alright, so we can say that science has an aspect of study about it. Science also means to be able to constructively criticize different ideas. For instance, when I studied the social science, there would be lots of ideas presented with all the reasoning behind them, and then we would be asked to approach the ideas and the evidence in different ways. So science is about seeing things from a different point of view, challenging and trying to find out what is true. So the word science can be used to mean the search for the truth. But it isn't just a question of thinking, when I'm sitting down and meditating, man, I am looking for the truth. No, when you're sitting down and meditating, you're sitting down and meditating. The actual process of finding the truth is an intellectual and an analytical process. You have to look at the way that people do that. Not just a question of saying, well, I did this experiment and this happened. But you got to think about, you can learn from it. If there's a failure, you learn why there's a failure. Or if there's a failure, you learn why those circumstances created that failure, so you can learn which other factors can be used to then create a success. So there is an artistic element to you being a scientist of sorts and applying your knowledge and your skill to the analytical process. So science itself is also a variety of art. But if you're going to put a silly hat on, put on a cloak and wave your magic wand in the air, alright, just out of example, that itself is not magic. Because that itself is just a theatrical exercise, alright, that's believing you're something greater than yourself. Unless, of course, you can work out why you're doing it, what states of mind you're in, what ideas you're using, what colours, what meditations, what state, all the other teeny-weeny, itsy-bitsy little details of the whole experience. As I said, you got to study as well. You got to study the different states of mind you can be, and you got to have some understanding of electrochemistry, your brain waves, for instance. You've got to understand how your breathing and your meditation exercises and your circle work and being in a reverent, prayerful state of mind actually affects your brain. That is also going to be a lifelong study. But without that knowledge, you then can't look back and say, I am an artist and a scientist man. Alright? And you certainly can't turn around to me and say, magic is the art and science of change in accordance with the will. Because if you do that, you're just being an antisocial jackass. And you got to understand the meanings of the words that you're using before you use them, full stop. And especially before you use them for someone like me. Alright, I'll just leave you with that thought right now. And I just want you to look closely at your own magical practices and ask yourself, are you being an artist and are you being a scientist? I myself don't use that particular definition when I'm approaching magic. I say that magic is the attempt to be miraculous and to create supernatural effects. It's not a question of going through a school of mysticism. Alright, mysticism is a different kettle of fish, that's there for self-improvement. Magic is about results. But there is a self-development aspect to the process of knowing, being and doing. Alright, so look after yourselves, sleep tight everybody, and we'll speak again soon. Chill out.